Joining us on the call, ladies and gentlemen. Good day and welcome to the DCBBANK Limited Q4 and FY21 earnings conference call. Joining us on the call today are Mr. Murali M. Natarajan, MD and CEO, DCBBANK Limited, and Mr. Bharat Sampath, CFO, DCBBANK Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star, then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Murali M. Natarajan. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Good evening. Welcome all of you. Saturday, late evening. Thanks for dialing into our call. Hope everyone has had a chance to look at the press release and the investor presentation and of course the 2 pages that we have put on the stock exchange. I have a couple of remarks to make and then we'll open up for questions. 24th March 2020 is when we had the lockdown last year, and it was a very, very different situation for all of us, for the entire nation and of course the entire world. And at the time we were trying to figure out how exactly are we going to move this ship forward, what are going to be the challenges, what should we focus on, what should we do next. And at the time, if somebody had asked me to guess or take a shot at what would be our profit performance for 2021, FY 2021, I wouldn't have given a very high probability of hitting the same number as we delivered in FY 2020. Even on an underlying basis, when we look at our performance for 4th quarter and for the full year, if you back off some of the excess provision that as a conservative management team we made, we seem to have delivered same or better performance than last year from a P&L point of view. Many complications we had to deal with, from lockdown, moratorium, extended moratorium, Honorable Supreme Court judgment, the various relief and other guidelines released by Reserve Bank of India, the impact of that on the system. And don't forget, the bank even upgraded in the whole lockdown and other things, the bank upgraded its core banking system of Pinnacle to the next higher version. So we had some really, I would put this as one of the most challenging professional year in my life in all these years of banking. But thanks to the support of my team and the board and the promoter and investors, we are where we are at the moment. Is the battle over? No. We seem to have started the whole situation once again, multiplied by say 5 times or 10 times of what we faced last year. The team is very confident. I used to tell you that we are confident. We continue to be confident. The experience that we have learned on dealing with this kind of situation last year is going to come once again handy. It is unavoidable for some level of stress in the book, but we have strong operating profit and we have a really good capital position. Tier 1 is 15.5% and total capital position is almost 20%. So we have a pretty strong capital position and we have a robust business. Yes, it is focused on self-employed largely. It does get affected by lockdowns and curfews and restrictions. But the fact is that most of it came back, I would say, by February, March. And we thought we ended March quite well, only to come to a situation by first week or 10th of April, whereby unfortunately, the situation deteriorated a lot in the country. And the main priority of the country right now is to make sure that we plateau the second wave, reduce it, and then get back to our business, save lives and get back to our business as soon as possible. If you look at the slippage for the full year, it is same or similar as what we had the previous year. And what has impacted us a bit is that normally you need about 7-8 months to upgrade / collect from NPA accounts. You have to work with the customer, you need to use the SARFAESI Act and so on. The disruptions and our ability to kind of work out solutions has been hampered by various restrictions and so on. The customers are very much there. If you look at our collection efficiency, barring a percentage or 2%, we've been able to collect at least one installment from almost every customer, right? And a high percentage of customers have paid at least 3 or more installments. So that tells you about, and it's all in-house. We don't have any external collection agencies, all in-house collections and recovery process. So that is where we are. We believe we have added headcount since the last quarter. We were all prepared to press the accelerator and move forward with some more speed. Unfortunately, there has been some setback because of the drastic increase in infection. So what we are doing is we are preparing ourselves to be ready such that as situation starts to improve, we can try and normalize the business as soon as possible and as much as possible. That's where we are. Hope you have had a chance to look at the presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Akshay Chheda from Perfect Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah. I just had a few questions. The first one, sir, can you please share the thought process behind investing in companies like India INX, India ICC and Texino? Will we be seeing more such investments in coming times? The second one is, what's the long-term vision we aspire for? Do we also have the capability set to scale up, like say, someone like Kotak Bank in the very long run? And the third one is, what's the total percentage of secured loan book in our total loan book?
What is the last question?
Percentage secured loan.
What is the total percentage of secured loan book in our total loan book?
Yeah. So we will give you the answer on the last, but I want to tell you that except for MFI BC loans and to some extent some fintech tie-up loans, hardly we have any unsecured loans in our book, and I'll give you the exact percentage on that in a minute. As far as Kotak banks or other big banks are concerned, we are currently focused on how do we get past the current situation that is there in the country, and how do we build momentum in business, and how do we make sure that we have as minimal impact on P&L as possible from loans that are likely to get stressed and are stressed. That is our focus. If situation improves as soon as possible, we are planning to try and get our loan growth book, and we have the capacity now. We have got a lot of stuff sorted out in the last few months. We were all ready to press the accelerator. In fact, March has been a very good month for us. Unfortunately, by April 7th, 10th, we have had these challenges, lockdowns and so on. We believe that we should be able to at least grow by high teens, provided situation improves, as quickly as possible. Regarding our investments, from time to time, our management team keeps looking at some of the opportunistic investments. We are not interested in some big stake at all. They are all very small investments. Years ago, we made an investment in Annapurna. Then recently, we made a small investment in TechFino. Then we have made this investment in this exchanges. So we keep looking at small opportunities like that. And if it comes without, giving up some great valuation and having some great P&L impact or so, we just look for these opportunities and invest. So there is no big game plan here. It is just a simple management keeps reviewing opportunities and making one or two investments here and there. It so happens that two investments have happened pretty quickly within a short time. Regarding your question on unsecured, secured, we have information that about 95% of our book is secured.
Oh. Okay, that was helpful, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Malar Kemal Mane from an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yes, sir, I wanted to understand, what is the average duration and what is the average ticket size of the deposits and loans?
Our main focus on deposits is retail deposits. If you see the press release, retail deposits, which is less than 2 crores per ticket, has grown by 19% year on year. Okay. Generally, the retail deposit size that we get is somewhere between 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh. Our loan, usually ticket size is only about 30-35 lakhs. If you look at the press release, you will find that we are one of the most granular portfolios in loans that you can come across. Only 5% odd of our book is in the top 20 loans. 80 odd % of our book is less than 3 crores in terms of ticket size. So we are one of the most granular portfolio in banking at the moment. Okay. And what was your first question?
And the duration of the loans and deposits.
No, the mortgage duration, the actual duration that we give could be anywhere from 10 to 15 years or something. But actual duration, customer may have only 7-8 years because they tend to repay. Deposit, we always encourage customers to take long-term deposit like 2 or 3 years. So some months we get deposits which are 18-24 months, some months we get some 30 months. So you can safely say the duration could be about 20 odd months.
Okay, got it. And I wanted to, I have one question, in your FY20 annual report, you have mentioned the use of the SAS analytics in credit risk management and predictive models, and the big data analytics in the default behavior scorecard and the optimization of cash loading at ATM. So I wanted to understand this better. So if you could elaborate, or else we can connect offline as well.
So the analytics team, there's a separate team which looks at opportunities and risks using advanced analytics like the way we explained. And then we look at opportunities to optimize things. So like, for example, you were talking about loading of ATMs. If the loading of ATM is optimized, you save on funding costs, you save on transport costs, you save on agency costs. That's one example. So obviously we can connect offline and save, but that is basically the job of the analytics team.
Okay, so if we could arrange that offline, that would be great.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anil Tulsiram from Contrarian Value Edge. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question, sir. Based on the bank track record for the last 10 years, I have full confidence on the asset quality that asset quality will be maintained and COVID challenges will be met. So no questions on that. I'm just trying to understand our strategy. So in the past, bank has repeatedly mentioned City Union Bank as its role model. So two questions on this. City Union Bank focus more on the working capital loan, whereas we focus more on the LAP. Not for a second I'm suggesting that bank policy is wrong or we need to change, just trying to understand why. And second related question is, DCB Bank employee per branch is close to double that of the City Union Bank. As a result, our employee cost as a percentage of total assets is 40 to 50 basis points higher. So can you just explain this?
First of all, we of course offer working capital loan. If you look at the pie chart in the investor presentation, you will find SME, MSME. Yeah. Majority of that portfolio is working capital kind of loans. City Union Bank has an advantage. They have far number of more higher branches and they are far more concentrated on a particular geography. So their strategy may be different to that extent. We find that we have expertise in loan against property. Even in loan against property, on a case-by-case basis, when a customer comes, we give certain kind of additional facilities to the customer based on cash flows, etc. We find that from a branch cost point of view, from a delivery point of view, loan against property is somewhat superior because in CCOD what happens, customer utilization is a very big variable. Sometimes customer utilizes, sometimes doesn't utilize, but you block your capital because you have to keep the capital for the entire limit. So that we find not very efficient, right? And also the maintenance cost is higher in a CCOD kind of product. That is our outlook. Okay. So to that extent, this is different. We are different, at the same time we are similar to City Union Bank because the target market for City Union Bank is self-employed. Our target market is also self-employed. The way we administer the product is very different. For example, I don't think City Union Bank does loan against property, but we have a separate team doing that. Cost, the number of people per branch is again a different model. We have a lot of outbound sales teams in most of the products who go and actually seek these loans. Whereas City Union probably has a more branch-based model. What you should look at is, what is our cost to average asset? Our cost to average asset this year probably is about 2.19, but that may be because of some of the actions that we took the special actions that we took last year. But we believe that over a period of time, we should be same or better than City Union Bank over a period of time in terms of cost to average asset. And that is what is more important.
Yep. Thanks. Sir, second question is, can you elaborate more on the API banking strategy? What I meant is, what is our strategy for taking help of the fintech on acquiring assets and acquiring liabilities?
On a monthly basis, we are meeting several fintech. Some of the fintech companies are good and they can scale up. So we are trying our best to make sure that how can we make available APIs so that the fintech company can consume it and we can consume their APIs such that we can have an almost seamless kind of delivery to customers. This is a very long and big topic and complex topic which we may not be able to address all of it here. Suffice to say that we have a separate team which is working with several fintech companies. Some of it succeeds, some of it doesn't succeed. We sign up, we work on it. Fintech is not able to scale up. Some of the fintech are not very compliant. So that puts the bank at risk. So therefore we have to back off and say that, look, I don't think we can continue with this product. Those kind of things. So it's a very long and big discussion which we have to have separately. Suffice to say that there's a separate team focusing on tying up with fintech and making it successful.
Yeah. Sir, the next thing I want to understand is, over the last few years, bank has built excellent deposit franchise, and today we have one of the most granular deposits among the small private banks. So to ensure that these customers keep their money with our bank, not just on the basis of the higher interest rate, but because of the better service or whatever else. So can you elaborate more on this? Or will it be always higher interest, or we can provide something else that they are incentivized to keep money with us?
If a bank offers 7% interest on CASA and grow their CASA, you guys think that they are doing a very good job. and you think that they are offering lower interest. If a term deposit rate is maybe 25-50 basis points amongst the comparative peers, you think that we are offering higher interest rate. So you have to compare it properly and see where it is. Obviously, our rates are far higher than a Kotak Bank or something. They are different franchise in comparison. The way we make sure that customers want to have a product apart from slight improvement in the pricing is the product itself. We offer health insurance in our term deposit. We offer life insurance in term deposit, all rolled into one, and customers like it. You can't go to the market and say, I'll give you good service, so give me deposit. It doesn't work. But once you get the deposit, you better give good service, otherwise the deposits will go. That's the way banking works.
Yeah. Sir, and one data keeping point, what is percentage of advances which are under floating rate of interest?
I don't have that number. Those are numbers not being disclosed here, so, sorry about that.
No problem. So just one last question. So the cost of funds of the small banks like AU Bank, Ujjivan and Equitas has come very close to our bank, and they have also entered lakh of ticket size of around 20 to 30 lakhs. So do you think we will have a high competition from them, or we will manage the competition the way we have managed in the past?
I have finished 12 years in the bank and started my 13th year. We have always faced competition from different segments in different point in time. Of course, AU is a competition, Equitas is a competition, HDFC Bank is a competition. Whatever be the competition, we have to have operational excellence, have good products, have good ability to deliver, and that is how we keep growing our book.
That's it, sir. So just one request at the end, if in the next time if you can put some slides.
People to ask questions, please. Sorry about that. You have to give other people.
Not a question, just a request. Next time, if you can put some slides to explain the API banking strategy, that will be helpful. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohan Mandora from Equirus. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah, Rohan.
Mr. Mandora, if you can speak closer to the handset, please. Your voice is not audible.
Is it better?
Yes, sir.
Slightly better. Yeah, go ahead.
So, sir, on the collection trends in April, how is the trend? If you could share some comments on that. And also, given the fact that in the previous year, post the COVID, it took some time for some of the borrowers to start repaying. While currently the numbers are there that the non-repaying customer is lesser, but it took some time for them. So now with the current wave of COVID, how do you expect them to behave?
The first cut numbers of April seems to suggest that the collection efficiency is slightly lower than what we've seen in March. That is primarily because customers are available. There's not that any contactability issue. What I want to tell you is the difference between what you see in the second wave and first wave is, and I'm not trying to paint a negative picture here, I'm telling you the factual picture, is that collection staff some of them are infected. Some of the staff members' families are infected. Customers are infected. Customers' families are infected. So the whole system is somewhat distracted in trying to get past this challenge. Right? So therefore, it does have an impact on collection efficiency. And the market is closed. I mean, you know that. I mean, people say in some of the states, we are not allowed to go out after 2 or 3 o'clock or something in the afternoon, even if you are essential service. Right? There are very strict guidelines which we have to follow, which we have to absolutely adhere to. So there is some dip in the collection efficiency, which I mentioned in terms of a comment in my press release. Now, what we like about this recent announcement by RBI is, it may change tomorrow, but we really appreciate that, is that they have not declared any moratorium. We believe that when moratorium is declared, then it takes time for customers to come out of the moratorium, which is what we faced last time. Although from a 58-60% moratorium, we were able to kind of quote unquote wake up almost entire customer base and get our collections up. I mean, that is a dramatic improvement we have done since the August of last year. So if you do moratorium, then there are maybe complications in terms of what happens to interest and what happens to interest on interest. All these complications, I think, have been avoided by not declaring moratorium. So if the situation comes back to normal quickly, I don't believe the collection should dip as less as what happened last year. But again, we have to watch and see what happens. That's my guess.
Sure, sir. And sir, any quantification for the April collection? How much decline it is because of March level?
We will provide all that as we move along and declare our results in the next quarter. It's too early right now to say about it.
And for NIM decline sequentially, other than the interest reversal on the two components, 37 crores and 10 crores, is there any other one-off in that?
Underlying NIM appears to be in the same range as 365 to 370 basis points. We are confident that would be our NIM. Of course, how the whole MCLR benefit keeps getting passed on, because as we keep reducing the cost of fund, the formula is very much clear that it has to go back to the customer, especially those who are linked with the MCLR and not having fixed rates. So we believe that we should be in that range. There will be some quarter to quarter up and down regarding some reversal on NPA or reversal on restructure or whatever, but core underlying thing seems to be quite okay right now.
Sure, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we move to the next question, a reminder to the participants, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants, please limit your questions to 2 per participant. Should you have any follow-up, we may request you to rejoin the queue. The next question is from the line of Renish Bua from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir, and congrats on a great set of numbers in such a challenging time. So sir, just the first question is on the the provision and the health of the portfolio. I mean, as on March 21st, do we believe that the whatever impact is there due to first wave, so in terms of recognition and credit costs, we have built it in, and the incremental stress rate formation and the credit costs will be limited to the second wave, or you still believe that there will be some spillover of the first wave?
See, the existing customers, some of them have not been affected by first wave, and some of them have not been affected by second wave.
Right.
The existing customers, some of them may not have been affected by first wave, but may get affected by second wave. So it's very hard for me to segregate who is affected first wave, second wave, and all these things. All I can say is, at the moment, to me, I was like holding my heart in my palm, wondering as to what is going to be the announcement by RBI. Fortunately, there is no moratorium. When there is no moratorium, it's a slightly easier dialogue with the customer. In fact, we have sent SMS to customers and all saying, boss, koi moratorium nahi hai, continue to pay.
Pay, correct.
Moratorium gives some kind of a inertia and some kind of a challenge whereby it's very difficult to have a dialogue with the customer on his repayment. I mean, I don't know whether I'm able to get across my point on this, right?
No, I got it, yeah.
I'm not saying customers should not be given moratorium, but that should be left to the bank to see what kind of moratorium is required. For example, if you restructure a loan, you can give a 3 or 6 months moratorium for him to come back to some business as usual this thing and start repaying. That's a pretty decent way to handle this thing, right?
Correct.
So
correct. And
what we believe is, see, it's like this. What we believe is our NPA slippage last year and the year that we finished is pretty much the same. And if you look at the NPAs that we started with the year before, we would have provided almost 80-90% of that NPA. It is when you get a sudden increase in NPA because of all the Supreme Court and all, it takes time for us to build a provision. Okay?
Correct.
Second point I want to say is, provision also is a factor of the recovery. We are dealing with secured business. I am still telling you, given the small ticket size and all, customers will not let go of their property and things like that. But you have to give that time to customer to rectify his account, and maybe they want to just liquidate something and pay. Whatever it is, it's better to do that way. That is how we are trying to get the collections all going. Currently, what comfort I can kind of present here is that if you look at page 3 of our press release, if you can get hold of that. If you look at it, provision for NPA is 489 crores.
Yeah, correct.
And include the floating provision. We never have so far we have been creating floating provision every quarter and we have never used the floating provision. Okay? So we've just kind of presented that to you separately, right? Then we have 287 crores of provision for restructured assets and for other contingency.
Correct.
So as we enter 2021, yes, we are facing second wave. Yes, maybe collections efficiency will dip and all, but I won't call it cushion, but I would definitely call it as some kind of a quantum that we are carrying forward, and we kind of try to assess the situation from comparison other banks and all. We seem to be in a reasonably good provision situation is what at the moment. What will happen in the coming quarters? The management is very clear. Always make conservative provision because that helps the balance sheet to strengthen, and we are only making provision. We are not doing write-off, so it should come back as we do the recovery.
Got it. So, sir, actually, my next question on this reconciliation. So, this 489 crore is including floating provision. I mean, if we look at the calculated provision coverage on the gross NPA, net NPA, so we are utilizing floating as in Q4, right?
No. Sorry, Bharat can answer. Yeah.
Renish, for floating provision, RBI gives two alternates. One is one can count it partly towards Tier 2 capital, where there is limitation on what we can count. So standard asset provision which we make goes into our Tier 2 capital. Floating provision which we are making, other option RBI gives is if you don't take it as a Tier 2, then you can reckon it for net NPAs. But it does not mean that 108 is absorbed against actually specific NPAs which are over there. Specific provision for gross NPA is that 380 which is mentioned over there. 287 which is mentioned is assets which are not slipped. They are standard and to make additional provision, or they are restructured stress, but they are standard assets.
Got it. Got it. So basically,
that RBI guidelines which I am saying is reckoned in Tier 2 capital bars.
Got it. Got it. So if I understand correctly, so floating provision, since it's not a specific provision, in case there is a higher recovery, we can write back.
Yes, RBI recently announced that you can look at floating provision with board approval. Earlier it was only 1/3 and with RBI and board approval. Now they said you can utilize up to 100% and that too with board approval. So that flexibility is there with us.
Got it. Got it. So basically for COVID too, I mean for all practical purpose, we have a pool of 287 crore. I mean that is the contingency buffer we have as of now.
109 also in a way is a contingency buffer in that sense.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, like that. It's a way of presenting. You can see as 287 and move on. That is also, we don't have any problem with that.
That is also correct.
Yeah. The answer one I have is that the provision that we make for NPA, let's say for example we started with the X amount of NPA this year, the formula that we have in terms of making provision for that is always higher than what is prescribed by RBI. It's not that we have to, like, it's the way the policy works in our bank, because we want to make sure that we are always ahead on provision, and of course, if the recoveries are there, we kind of reverse that provision.
Got it. I mean, so our provision policy must be on LGD base rather than IRAC norms base, is what you are trying to highlight.
It's partly there, yes. Not fully, but partly, yes.
Got it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it from my side, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pranav Gupta from Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and good set of disclosures from your end. Just a couple of questions. So, firstly, in your opening comments, you sort of spoke about being able to deliver mid-teens growth. If we see a normalization of this pandemic in the next couple of months. Just wanted to understand from your end that while you have added capacity, would you, once this thing of COVID sort of eases out, would you be more conservative and, sort of wait for a little more time to understand how the cash flows of customers will get affected post-COVID, or would you start, sort of lending, where you have comfort? Just wanted to understand that.
That is what we did last time also. You see, last time also because of lockdown and stuff like that, we had to wait for a certain level of cash flows to be visible for us to lend. I am taking all that into account. See, for example, we have grown gold loan by more than 100-150%. Now, today the challenge is, I was talking to some very big gold loan company chairman also. The challenge is customers' fear and inability to reach the branch for a gold loan, as an example, right? When situation improves, I don't see that becoming a problem for us, so then we should be able to lend that. When I look at our SME working capital kind of loans, we are constantly in touch with, we can see the churn and we can constantly see the thing, so we should be able to do well. We talk about home loans, we talk about small salaried home loans or even small outfits. Within a short time, we should be able to see some of the cash flow. So obviously, we are going to take cognizance of what is the cash flows and all. What I'm trying to say is that from a capacity point of view, we are quite ready and we feel confident that if situation starts to smoothen out and better, we will be out there. That's basically what we are saying.
Sure. So second question is, just wanted to understand your perspective on, SARFAESI versus restructure. So, obviously because of the Supreme Court circular, we were not able to, enforce any, recovery measures till late of March. So, given the second wave and, we will see cash flows and we will see collection efficiencies drop. Once we start seeing a recovery, will we, sort of look to, do more recovery proceedings versus a restructure, or, how should we think of this?
There is no magic formula on that, except one, is that SARFAESI for an account that has slipped into NPA should always be used as some kind of I won't say threat, but some kind of a pressure on the customer. Okay?
Right.
Usually customers, even in the past I've told you, 90-95% of the customers always settle. They don't, go in for SARFAESI because customers feel that if they sell the property, and we also feel that if they sell the property, they'll fetch a better value than bank selling the property because the property will lose some value and the customer won't get any excess cash flow that may be available to him. So our usual go-to question is to force the customer to settle with us in that. When a customer we feel has got even all these restructure that we have done, none of the restructure I can say has been done, just say, okay, fine, let's do the restructure on this and push it forward. That is not how it is. We track restructure performance separately to see how customers are repaying. The reason we do that is, if customer has said that he is going to be all right, his business is looking up, he can pay 50% of the installment, 60% of the installment, we want to make sure that we give him a chance. That way what happens, 12-18 months down the line, if the customer's situation improves, it will be better for the customer as well as for us. Right? NPAs don't earn any money. Right? So I don't think there's going to be any change in strategy, but given RBI's current announcement that has happened, I do feel that customers will ask for restructure. Again, we will do case by case, look at it and see how best we can tailor that for them.
Right. So just a clarification on this. So had the Supreme Court order not halted SARFAESI, do you feel that we could have seen, accretion to NPAs which would have been lower than or much lower than what we saw, given that, collection efficiencies till March have continuously improved post-moratorium?
I think I would like to answer the question as I think we probably would have done a far better job on recoveries and upgrades. Because if the courts are not functioning efficiently, if you can't take help of the lawyers on a continuous basis to serve the notice, there's a lot of logistic challenges. How do you go and paste a notice in a house which is under, say, for example, mini what is that called? Containment or something. What do you do?
Yeah.
Right? If I start describing this, there's a lot of small. If we sit in our collection call, partly it is entertainment and partly it is, you just say, I got so many complications are there in a COVID kind of situation, right? So yeah, I think we could have done a far better job. But the fact is, I think the team is quite geared up. I mean, we keep doing collection review about 2-3 times. The spirit of the team is very high. I don't see any demotivation and things like that. Yes, sometimes we get a call from parents saying that their children won't come for work or something because they are afraid and all. We deal with all these things. But having said that, I think when the situation improves, we have already demonstrated to the investors that our collection efficiency, we are the first bank to put out the collection efficiency as a number to track, and other banks followed. You know that. So we will continue to look at that metrics and see how we can improve.
Sure. Just one last question, if I can squeeze in. Wanted to get some sense from you on the extension that you received from the RBI. While I understand that the bank might have applied for a 3-year period, but only 1 year has been received. Is there any anything additional in the communication that we've received to suggest why the RBI might have offered a 1-year extension rather than a 3-year? Because as per the new paper, you are eligible, right, to receive an extension. Just wanted to understand that.
In general, whether it is, this is my understanding. In general, all banks apply for 3-year extension for CEO, and RBI has been giving only 3-year extension. The extension process with the regulator is not an interactive process, whereby the bank will come to know in advance or something. It's a process whereby you put in your details. They may seek some additional details, and then so whatever communication has come from RBI, you have put it out in the exchange for you. If there is any additional communication, we would be responsible enough to put it out for you. If it is
absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That will be all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a request to all the participants to ask only 2 questions and come back in the queue so that we give a fair chance to all other participants. The next question is from the line of Himanshu Upadhyay from PGIM. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. I had a question on this collection efficiency, what we present.
Sure.
So, business loans and home loans, okay? So generally what we read and what impressions we get, or maybe my impression is wrong, you can correct me if that is the case, that home loans are more stable, okay, or than business loan. But in collection efficiencies, what we are seeing is, for us, is business loan is doing much better than home loans, okay? In both one time.
Where are you reading? Can you just guide me on that?
This is page number 4 of the press release, what you have given, okay?
So home loans is at 96.8, business loan is at 95.2. Customers, including delinquent and restructured in home loan, is 1.43, which is slightly higher than this thing. And if you look at 3 EMI space, it is 95%. So, it could be like a small bunch of customers or maybe some slightly higher ticket size or somebody who would have caused this. So I wouldn't read too much into this as a difference in some portfolio at all. Both are self-employed portfolio largely. So I wouldn't consider this as some major difference to be explained.
Okay. But the risk-weighted returns would be similar for both the products? What is being the observation?
Home loans generally at a risk weight of 35 to 50%. And loan against property is generally at a risk weight of 75%.
No, I was asking our own observations. What has been in our case?
We have had made sure that our pricing metrics and our risk metrics deliver greater than 14% return on both these products. Customer to customer it may differ, but our hurdle rate is 14% ROE on all these loans.
And one question was on gold loans. This is slide number 12 of your presentation, okay? We see a significant amount of jump in the stress, or I would say 69 crore to 552 crores in 1 year period.
6.9 crore to 55 crore. Gold loan, 6.9 crore to, this goes up and down. We bunch up the auction process. for customers. We don't, and we give a fair chance to customers to repay the amount because these are all their personal jewelry. So I wouldn't, we keep looking at various ways to make sure that we are not sitting on some fraud or spurious jewelry. So as and when we are able to do auctions, these numbers will start coming down. So I won't, I won't be concerned about that.
And one last question, on the FD side, which we give, what have that strategy we have used very efficiently over last many years, okay, to get granular deposit franchisee and increase the penetration. But how's the relationship or the strength of relationship? Have we any important learnings from that thing that we have been able to increase the depth of those relationships? And how do you evaluate your own performance over the years?
So first of all, the scorecard of the branch is skewed towards getting a retail term deposit and then cross-sell CASA to that customer. Secondly, I think the product team has given some good products like this health insurance and life insurance, which has been packaged into these products. Third is, our analytics team tell me, based on sample data of the term deposits, if, for example, a term deposit customer comes in January of a particular year at 100 rupees, they deepen their relationship to almost 150 or 160 rupees by end of the year. So it seems to be quite working well for us from an existing customer deepening of relationship as well. So that's how we have been getting term deposits and reducing our bulk deposits.
Okay. And generally the conversion rate has it improved drastically over 4-5 years?
What is conversion rate?
So cross-sell ratio for those customers and the depth of relationships.
It's been 3 years. It's been 3 years since we embarked upon a full retail term deposit strategy. September 18 is when we started. The initial results are quite encouraging, and we believe that as we put more and more effort on this from our call center and branches, we should be able to do better.
Okay. Thank you from my side.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of MB Mahesh from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Good evening. Just a couple of questions from my side. On the AIB, the increase in NPS, could you just kind of discuss what's driving that part?
Yeah. So much of the NPA is coming from MFI BC portfolio, and we have not completely utilized the FLDG of some of these BCs yet. We are giving them a chance to collect. The recoveries were shaping up quite well till end of March. Then, unfortunately, we hit a wall in 10th or 12th of April. So the MFI BC portfolio recoveries would be slightly long haul from a full recovery point of view, but part of it would be covered by FLDG.
See, last quarter you indicated about 55 crores is secured by FLDG.
Yes.
That's the same amount that we are looking at this time around, sir?
It could be higher because the FLDG has different structures depending upon the performance of the BC. Okay.
Second question is on the restructured loan segment as well as the ECLGS. On the restructured loan, which product segment has seen the maximum amount of offtake?
Mortgage and CV. When I say mortgage, means largely loan against property and CV. And we are tracking how these customers are performing. We have done proper evaluation of these customers. ECLGS don't confuse with restructure. That is a separate product, and like I mentioned, we have always been very careful to just give, because there are a lot of customers who used to call us desperately for ECLGS, and we have been very careful about giving that disbursal, because if the customer's business is not going to survive, no point in just taking ECLGS and applying to your thing and then only to get affected later. Okay. So we have been very careful, and we intend to be careful because we can disburse all the way till September.
Perfect. Sorry, and just one clarification. Collection efficiency will include arrears as well, right?
Include what?
Arrears as well, right?
It is billed is the what we bill is the numerator, and what we collect is what we bill is the denominator, what we collect is the numerator.
Collection includes the past dues of that.
It does not, no.
Only collection against the billed amount.
Whatever we bill
for the month and collection against that billed amount. Previous month is not included.
But that includes even restructured loans, just to let you know that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aman Elahi from Investec India. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Just two questions from my side. Firstly, when do we expect our NIMs to glide towards the guided number of 365 to 370 basis points? And secondly, this year, obviously, first half, we didn't see much of lending happening. So obviously, our costs were lower, especially cost to assets. And, our cost to assets for the full year is in the range of 2.1 to 2.4%. So how much can we expect this to increase for FY22 and FY23 as we start to increase our lending activity?
Okay. One thing you guys have to clearly understand and give us credit, especially how we implemented 150 branches in 2015 onwards and still had the cost metrics pretty much come under control. So just give us credit that we understand how these costs move and how we control these costs. Okay. So in near term, cost will increase because last year we have not been able to do the kind of salary action that we intended to do, which we will hope to do for at least part of the population. Okay. And second point I would like to make is that our headcount is also increasing because we are increasing because we want to make sure that we have enough firepower when things improve because we have the product, we have the distribution, so we want to make sure that we do that. To that extent, you should see some increase in costs in the Q1, maybe even Q2. But what we are confident is, we know how to make those people productive, we know how to make sure that our cost efficiencies are coming in the planned manner, and cost income ratio would start to drop even if it increases in the near term. That is point number one. Second point is cost to average assets. Our long-term goal is 220, and there are several activities which are going on uninterrupted in getting that done. For example, the Mission 309 accelerated digital agenda, it's continuing. There's a separate review that happens to make sure that these things are doing. And as and when we succeed in actually getting some efficiency there, we will hope to at least showcase some of that to the investors. Regarding NIM, underlying NIM is in the range of 365-370 basis points. Unfortunately, this Supreme Court and these NPA, kind of create some kind of noise in the thing. Like I said, barring any issues regarding restructure and NPA, our underlying NIM is pretty intact, is what I would like to say. So when the situation stabilizes, and we didn't anticipate this second wave and all these impacts. So we have to deal with that in Q1, perhaps even in Q2. So yeah, so that's where we are.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jay Mundra from BNK Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, sir, is the restructuring number that you have given is the net restructuring number. And if I add the provisioning that we are carrying, it is somewhere around 1100 crore. So that would be around 4.3% number as a percentage of loan. So I just wanted to check, this is the total restructuring under the, let's say, resolution 1.0, or there is something else under implementation under restructuring 1.0?
This includes all the restructuring that we did, even including that COVID package.
And there's nothing under implementation
What is the thing we got? I'm saying that this is what the total restructure book for the bank, and I told you that we'll be probably around 5%. We are at 4.3%.
Sure. Yeah. So that is okay. Thank you, sir. And second, sir, I mean, you've given a good details on the product-wise stress kind of a book, right? Which these percentage of people have not paid an installment. But I think if one were to look, because you have now started disclosing NPA and restructured, so whatever is NPA and whatever is restructured is anyway given separately. If you have any number which is, of course, not a part of NPA or restructuring, but is kind of having a stress in your view. I mean, do you have that kind of a number? Because now, because you have NPA...
We are doing fair amount of disclosure. So for the time being, these are our disclosures.
Sure. Okay, and last thing, sir, on the new RBI guidelines, right? So that also suggests that the chairman should also be independent. Any thought process there?
We have to follow the guidelines of Reserve Bank of India new governance structure. Whatever, we are operating this bank under the Reserve Bank of India guidelines. So whatever guidelines come, we have to work through those guidelines.
And lastly, sir, maybe it is too early to ask that, you have been given 1 year extension and probably, usually a bank starts, I mean, like you also did 6 months before the scheduled term ends. But, I mean, a clarity on this, at least from your side, would help that, at least from the bank side, right, there would be, I mean, there have been various instances of 1 year extension given multiple times. But just wanted to check that, how are you approaching this as and when the time comes? Or this could lead to a rethinking at the board level? Yeah.
Rethinking about what?
I mean, having a 3-year term for any NBCO is, I think, is more, let's say, desirable. So in that direction...
Even for the MDCO, that is desirable, right? So what I want to say is that the board furthermore cannot ask for extension beyond 2 more years. Now what the board, we have to apply usually 6 months in advance, otherwise it is seen as a incorrect process by the bank. So most likely the bank will approach RBI for whatever the decision is by the board in October of this year. So it is very too early to comment at this point in time. As far as I am concerned, I am proceeding as though I am here for some time and working with my team. And as far as the succession plan is concerned, the board is well aware of what needs to be done. The promoter is well aware of what needs to be done. And our bank has always taken succession planning and all very seriously. And we are very confident that it is going to work out quite well.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mona Ketan from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir, good evening. I have one question on the growth front. So, while DCB remains the MSME-focused bank, if you look at the recent quarters, while we have maintained caution on this segment, we've seen, several of the larger banks increasingly become aggressive in this segment and delivering maybe a growth of about 6 to 7% sequentially. So why is this dichotomy and how do we read this, and does that pose a risk to our model in terms of growth and opportunity?
As far as I know, there is no risk to our model, and I think we have done a pretty decent job in the fourth quarter. We are starting to increase our headcount. Of course, we may probably have to give it a pause for a month or so. And we are pretty confident that our growth rate, as and when situation improves, should be quite decent, and we probably may not have to see the kind of growth rates, unfortunately, that we had to deal with in the last couple of years. Of course, the only condition is we have to figure out as to how soon it improves. We got our sales, target market, whatever else needs to be sorted out, all lined up. unless there is any dramatic change that happens in the environment, as soon as situation starts to improve, I think we should be fine.
Sure. And on the PCR front, just wanted to double check. So these floating provisions of 109 crores, it's already part of your PCR calculations. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, if you could just throw some light on your branch expansion plans going ahead.
At the moment, there are some logistic issues, but we think that 20-25 branches is something that we should be able to do in the 12-15 odd months. That is what we have mentioned. And we know how to run branch. We are not worried about cost shooting up and things like that, because we know how the cost will go up and how we'll bring it under control and how we'll make it efficient. So all those we are pretty clear about, and we have demonstrated in the past. So we think that we also have identified where else to put our branches, what else to do. The situation was very different on March 31st or even maybe 3rd or 4th of April. Unfortunately, what has happened in the last month or so has kind of put some challenges, but having dealt with similar challenges last year, we are quite confident we'll deal with it this year again.
Sure, thanks. That was helpful.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashutosh Mishra from Ashika Stock Broking. Please go ahead.
Sir, my question is a bit from the longer term perspective. As our cost of deposit is now has come down substantially, which may give us opportunity to launch some new product, which where we can capitalize or grow our loan book aggressively. Do you have any plan, anything pipeline in that, because you are collaborating with a lot of fintechs and other?
So, like I mentioned, one of the new products we did very successfully in this quarter was Trend, and we hope to scale it up. It's a pretty good product from utilizing the excess liquidity that you have on short term. It is MSME product. It is largely PSL. It is small ticket. It ticks all the boxes that we have. So we have a separate team that is working on it, and we have been fairly successful, at least in the initial stages on Trend. That's a new product that we launched. We also have tied up with two successful, fintech. We can see some green shoots on that in terms of scaling up. One is in the agri area and the other is in regular business. So we are also looking at some opportunities in co-lending space. Several NBFCs have approached us, but we want to make sure that operationally and from a return point of view, it is meaningful for us. So hopefully we should be able to do that as well. So a lot of work is going on. Again, the speed will depend upon how well we can execute in these times, but efforts are on.
Yeah, okay. So similarly on deposit front, as the deposit rates are the historically lowest in India at this point of time, and do you see any challenges for a bank like us in the future, or how we are preparing ourselves for that?
In 2009, when I joined the bank, one of the rating agencies asked, "Are you constrained on deposits?" This is like 2009. I was just looking at them and saying, "What are they saying?" But if you look at the way we have grown our retail term deposit, which the same strategy is being copied by some of the other banks, the way we have kind of managed our LCR, I don't believe that we have any problem in generating deposits. We have consciously chosen not to onboard a CASA customer first, because the cost versus their balances versus the stability, all that is a lot of, like with all these Google Pay and Paytm and, all the other things, customers, the reason to buy on a CASA has to be very strong for us to be able to do that. But if you do a term deposit and then have customers take the SA account, that seems to be a lot better from a loyalty as well as from a deepening point of view. Now that's our view. We can always throw money and say, here is 6%, 6.5%, please take the SA. I'm sure we'll be successful also. But that's not what we are choosing to do.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kamlesh Dadlani from Umang India Joint Investment Fund. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. See, the question is in relation to the growth. So obviously for FY21, management rightfully focused on limiting slippages, consolidating balance sheet, and advances. Growth was only marginal if you look at it from the full year perspective. But what would be helpful if management can just guide us in terms of what is the growth outlook in terms of advances that we can look at, say in a short term FY22 perspective and even in a medium term perspective, and where the opportunities for growing the loan book that management currently looks at. So I think that will be largely.
Please, have you read the point 9 on our press release?
Yeah.
So I should assume that you have read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm clearly telling you where we are focusing on: business loans, home loans, gold loans, KCC, tractor, loans to MFI, BC loans.
Yes.
Year on year, we have grown our home loans by 15%, gold loan by 172%, agri-inclusive banking 7%, and you please remember that in agri-inclusive banking, MFI loans were not doable for almost 6-7 months. Okay, so if you look at our performance on some of the targets about that we are doing all right. We have not had success in terms of growing commercial vehicles because we have chosen to kind of limit our exposure in the near term on commercial vehicles. All right. So the growth area will be the same. We have built the capacity from a 6,000 odd headcount in December. We have gone to 6,400. We were targeting a pretty decent growth in FY22, but looks like first quarter we may not have too much of success. But as things ease up, we are ready to start in full flow the process of whatever we were doing in the fourth quarter, especially February and March. So we are pretty confident that we should get back to a much better growth path as things ease up.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Gaurav Jani from Centrum. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question, sir. Just two questions, mainly on the recovery front. So, if I look at your,
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, if I look at your recoveries, in overall of FY21 versus our past run rate, we've obviously lagged, and obviously you mentioned the reason. But just wanted to have a deeper perspective as to, what led to such a slow run rate, because typically what we understood is the second half and, typically the last quarter was fantastic overall for the banking system in terms of lending and probably also in terms of recovery. So, you could please correct me if I'm wrong, but the point being, so, see what, led to this slow recovery, and was it slower than you also anticipated? That's the first part of my question. I'll come to the second part later. Thanks.
Yeah. So we largely rely on putting pressure on the customer through SARFAESI and working through the customer on selling his property or part selling his property so that he can reduce his loan, put him on a payment plan so that he can repay. So many of those activities got disrupted in last year. We started picking up speed in February, March. Usually when you start picking up speed, it takes about 6 months for things to kind of gain some momentum. We have also had limited success on organizing the auctions in gold loan because for COVID reasons we were just not able to get all the things together, especially in March as things were getting a little tough towards the end of March. So what I feel is that as the court process, the lawyer process, all that starts to kind of ease up, we should be able to step up our recovery. The good news is that we hold the property. The LTVs are in pretty good, pretty acceptable range. Customers are cooperating. They all understand what the issues could be. So I do think that there will be some pickup in this thing as the situation improves. So I am not, while I'm slightly, kind of disappointed that our recoveries are not that good, but reviews with collection indicates that it will look positive as things move on.
Sure. So the second part is obviously, how do we look at FY22 in terms of recoveries? Still early days, but, could we revert back to our previous levels or still early days to comment on that?
It is early to comment, but collection team is on full swing except those who have been affected by COVID. They are working very hard to get customers to the thing. The first focus is on making sure that as less number of customers slip into NPA as possible, and there is a separate team working on recovery efforts. And once that starts to pick up, hopefully by second or third quarter, we should get some momentum back of this.
Got it. Thank you. That's it from me. All the best.
Operator, last two questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikhil from SIMPL. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Am I audible?
Mr. Nikhil, if you can speak closer to the handset, please.
Hello. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. My question, two questions. One is, if we look at almost 4.5% of the book was restructured, and another 600 crores of book was booked as a gross NPA. Now, if we look at over a year, in this COVID, we've seen the worst from a lockdown to a normalization, part normalization of cash flow. So, for rest of the book, the 95%, do you see any issues with their ability to generate the cash flows and in their business models, or are you comfortable that we should not see any issues over there, incremental issues?
The NPA slippage is pretty much similar to what we had in the previous year. Okay.
Yeah.
What we have had is a higher, restructure, and that has been as per my guidance. I've given this guidance almost 2 quarters ago that is what we are looking at the moment, based on the cash flows and so on. So that can give you a sense of how well we understand our portfolio as to what is likely coming through, because we do a lot of reviews of collections to see whose cash flow, how it is impacted, what can come, what cannot come, and so on. Even in the 600 odd crore of NPA that we have had Supreme Court said that recognize the NPA on March 23rd, the picture would be very different. But the rule was that we should recognize from September 1. Lot of the customers of NPA had, may not have paid all 3 installments, but many of them have started putting, in fact, for the country, in my own view, and it is my personal view, if we had started recognizing NPA only from March 23rd, many of the customers will remain standard, and that gives them a chance to probably rectify their credit rating and whatever else, and then actually become better. Unfortunately, the ruling was applied on September 1. I mean, we have to work with whatever is the ruling. So, if I look at that from the point of view, a lot of customers who were quite alright on March 23rd, but because they didn't clear all 3 installments from the September, were NPA, and it is included in that 600 crore. So we understand our customer portfolio pretty well. What happens is when the lockdown and things like that ease, it takes almost 3-4 months for them to come back to even a 70-80% type of cash flow level. At the time, the bank needs to kind of understand what we should do to help. That is how we have kind of helped out a lot of the customers on restructure. We haven't helped our customer. If nobody is paying anything, we have not said that they can be restructured. We said, sorry, we can't restructure because you don't have any cash flows to support. That's how we have handled the portfolio.
Okay. Which means then the rest of the book which we have as of today, even with the localized lockdowns which are happening now, we are pretty confident, probably 85-90% of the book should remain stable, except in case some unforeseen issues come up, because of COVID, some health issues and all. But otherwise, these business models are sustainable and the promoters are also able to bring back the cash flow.
We have not lent to any customer whose cash flow was not sustainable, business model was not sustainable. They all had excellent CIBIL record. To the best of my knowledge, very few customers would be below 700 or even 650. Most of them would have been at 700 plus kind of levels. These guys have been doing business for 3 years or more. Many of these customers have had double income, in the sense their own business income plus some income from spouse or son. So there's a lot of combination of income. That's the reason we have been able to kind of bring the collection efficiency from 60% moratorium to all the way to what we presented to you in March. So we are confident of the portfolio. But how these people will be impacted by this COVID, what business how, even I don't have experience in telling you how it would be. But we have to wait and see how that pans out.
Okay. Secondly, sir, on gold loan, you did discuss about it, but just one question which I wanted to understand. Like, if we look at it, it's almost close to a 1,500 crores of gold loan book in our advances, and we became aggressive enough in the gold loan book to grow it over the last 1 year, and still, if you look at the NPAs from 6 crore, it jumped to 55 crore.
Hey Baba, don't worry about the gold loan NPA. I don't know what you guys are thinking. Gold loan NPA.
No, sir, let me finish.
Auction. When we say we are going to do auction, customer comes and pays, and that's about it. Unless I'm sitting on some fraud, which is not the case, don't worry about gold loan NPA.
Okay, fine.
I don't want to waste time on discussing something which is of no consequence in this whole scheme of things. So stop bothering about gold loan NPA. It is not a fraud or anything like that. Customers have not paid. It is their family jewelry. We will tell them, we'll give them an auction notice. 95% of them or 90% of them will come and pay. Rest of it will auction and the matter will be finished.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. We take the last question from the line of Nilanjan Karpa from Nomura. Please go ahead.
Hi, Murli. So one question, given that the wave 2 is seemingly obviously quite bad, and there is unfortunate mortality risk. So just wanted to understand, how does you take care of this mortality risk through our underwriting? What kind of structures do we typically do? Does it differ between, term loans versus working capital loans? If you can talk about that. And second, of the 916 odd ECLGS, if I can have a split of what is individual and non-individual.
Most of it, almost 60-70% would be individuals, I guess, or maybe it is a 50% split. I don't have that data, but all of them are business loans. That is how you can give ECLGS. Otherwise, you can't give ECLGS. We have been as careful as possible in giving ECLGS to most viable businesses rather than just trying to use it for solving some near-term problem. Hopefully that would be successful. Time will tell, but at the moment it looks okay. Regarding mortality, I somehow think that over time, insurance pricing, health insurance, life insurance, all this is going to jump, if not already. A lot of our customers have taken insurance when they took this loan. So to that extent, if there is any mortality, we should get payment from the insurance company. But over time, I think most insurance company will probably be relooking at their rates or probably already done it. I'm not keeping track of that. But that's how we try to protect our portfolio. We have the underlying property. Most sad thing to do would be to deprive the whole family of that property to satisfy the loan. So we try and be as empathetic as possible under the circumstances and try to come to some settlement with those kind of families. As of now, we haven't faced too many of those challenges.
Right. Sorry, can push a final question. The AIB NPLs. Ultimately, how do you what the loss given defaults look like? So
much of that NPA is coming from AIB, MFI, BC loans.
Correct.
And so BC loans, part of it will be covered by FLDG, part of it will be with our agreement with the BCs to recover those loans. The ones that are not covered by FLDG will be slightly long drawn, where in some select cases, customers may have to be given some additional funding for him to repay the thing. So we are working that out step by step. It was all going on quite well till March. Now the collection has again slowed down in BC. I don't know what the other MFI companies are telling you, but we have information from BC that there has been some reduction in collection efficiency.
Sure. Thanks, Murali.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments. Over to you, sir.
That was a very long 1.5-hour call today. Thanks for everyone's patience. Have a good weekend. Look forward to talking to you all in the next quarter. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of DCB Bank Limited, that concludes this conference. We thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.